So good morning everyone. We are talking about Pontic. This topic we will be talking in two parts. The content of the will be the introduction and definition of Pontic. What is the mean of Pontic? Then we are going to see what is the definition of Pontic according to the glossary of Prosodontic terms. Then followed by we are going to see what are the different requirements of the Pontic and prerequisite of the Pontic. And at the end, with part 1, we are going to see the classification of different ridge defect and how we manage that different ridge defect. So we introduced Pontic is the suspended member of fixed partial denture. Everybody knows that. Whatever tooth is missing, we are going to replace that missing tooth, and we are taking support from your abutment tooth. On the abutment tooth you put a retainer, and to the retainer the Pontic, which is a suspended member which is going to replace the missing natural tooth, is called as your Pontic, and the joint between the Pontic and the retainer are called as connector. In connector chapter, we have seen different types of connectors. I hope everybody knows that: rigid connector, non-rigid connector. So today we are going to talk regarding the Pontic. By definition, according to the glossary of Prosodontic term, the definition of Pontic goes like this: it is an artificial tooth or teeth. It may be one teeth or it may be more than one teeth of a fixed partial denture. It is a artificial tooth of a fixed partial denture that replaces missing natural tooth. Whatever tooth is lost, we are going to replace that tooth, right? So with the help of the artificial tooth, which is a part of your fixed partial denture, which is going to replace your missing natural tooth, that restores the function. That artificial tooth that we are going to restore, it is going to restore the function of that missing tooth, and usually fills the space which was previously occupied by the clinical crown. So the space which was first occupied by the natural tooth, which has been extracted, maybe because of caries, maybe because of trauma, or reason could be any, we will replace that missing natural tooth, that empty space, with our artificial tooth. This is the definition of your Pontic, which is given by glossary of Prosodontic term 8. I hope everything is clear now. Fine. Now, what are the requirement of Pontic? Basically, the first most important requirement of the Pontic is it should be smooth and convex in all direction. Because if it is concave, there will be accumulation of food. The cleaning will be difficult. That is why it should be convex and as smooth as possible, because you know that if the surface is not smooth, if it is rough, the tiny particles, the small particle will accumulate or will stuck into that rough surface, and if that tiny particle stucks on the surface of the Pontic, if they are unable to clean, there will be other progression of other conditions like halitosis, that is bad breath, or which is going to lead into problems for your periodontium in future. So to avoid all this problem, the surface of the Pontic should be smooth and as convex as possible. It should be easily cleansable and it should facilitate plaque control. So whatever plaque control devices we have, like your dental floss, interdental brushes, toothbrushes, this Pontic should be able to allow all that cleaning aids to clean the area properly, to have a proper healthy gingiva. Number 3, pinpoint pressure or free contact on the ridge. Now we are going to put this Pontic on a edentulous area. We are going to put the Pontic on the edentulous area. Now can you see this edentulous area? So when this Pontic comes in contact with your edentulous area, with your soft tissues, it should not apply pressure, because this Pontic or this fixed partial denture, which is a member, Pontic is a member of your FPD. So this FPD, when you fix on a abutment tooth, it is permanent. Your patient cannot remove like your removable partial dentures. Removable partial denture your patient removes before he goes to bed. These fixed partial denture, we don't do that. They are permanent. So if this surface of the Pontic is applying pressure on your mucosa, that pressure will be permanent. And if there is a permanent pressure on the mucosa, there will be resorption. There will be irritation for the mucosa, and you know what are the consequences of this irritation. So our Pontic, when you want to place this Pontic onto the edentulous area, it should not apply any kind of pressure. In second part, we are going to learn the classification of Pontic. In that, we will see that there are two types of Pontic classification. One is with the contact, one is without the contact. So that time you will understand what is the importance of this pinpoint pressure free contact on the ridge. So this is one of the most important requirement for the Pontic. No irritation to the gingival tissue. This number 3 point and number 4 point, they are related to each other. There should be no irritation to the gingival tissue. If the surface is smooth, if it is convex, if it is having no pressure point, automatically there will be no irritation. So all these points are related with strength and longevity. The Pontic should have sufficient amount of strength so that it should withstand the occlusal forces. It should not fracture or it should not change the dimension. Restores the function. Whatever function has been lost because of loss of that particular tooth, if it is molar tooth, we are going to lose the masticatory efficiency. Masticatory efficiency, understood? Right. So we have already lost the masticatory efficiency. So when you replace that missing natural tooth with some Pontic with fixed partial denture, you are going to restore all the functional requirements. If it is anterior tooth, then it concerns with the aesthetic, the beauty of the patient. Whatever aesthetic is lost will be restored by your Pontic. So this is again one more important requirement of your Pontic. Color stability should be there, because there are certain materials. For example, if I tell you regarding the composite, now you know that if you do a composite restoration gets discolored in long run because of coffee stain, because of your tobacco or smoking stains, it gets discolored. So that is a disadvantage. That type of disadvantage we should not have with our fixed partial denture. There should be absolutely no staining or no discoloration with our Pontic. This is our requirement, and up to certain extent we have achieved that goal because of your ceramic material, because of your metal, right? So with the help of this different material we can have good amount of color stability for long run. No overload on the abutment, right? Because what will happen with the overload I will show you in next slide. Emergence profile. Now this term is new to you. Emergence profile. Emergence profile means, now when you observe any tooth, any natural tooth, when you observe that, it looks like it is growing from the gingiva because that tooth is coming from the socket. In the socket there are roots. To the roots the crown portion is attached. So when you see that tooth, it looks like it is emerging from the gingiva. So our natural dentition, our artificial Pontic, what we are going to replace, it should also have that kind of appearance. It should look natural. It should look like it is emerging from the mucosa, from the residual ridge or from the gingiva, right? For that reason we should have a proper emergence profile. You will understand this emergence profile when we study about the ridge defect. So these are all 9 main requirement of your Pontic. Can I proceed? Everything is clear? Fine. Remember I told you overload, it should not overload. This will happen. Now can you measure how many roots or tooth are there? How many Pontics are there? 1, 2 and 3. I think there are 2 canines and 1 molar. On these 3 teeth, how many teeth we have replaced? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 teeth we have replaced by taking support of 3 teeth. Right? Do you think this is called as overloading? These 3 teeth are not meant to bear all the occlusal forces of all these 9 teeth. That is the reason this happened. Because of overloading, there is loss of periodontium from these abutment tooth, and within 5-6 months, maybe after 1 year, whole tooth along with the prosthesis will come out. What is the reason for this overload? We have already seen. How to deal with this overload? We can deal this overload by applying Anti's law. If you follow, because on road when we are traveling, we have to obey the traffic signals. Then only everybody can drive safely, right? And everybody can reach to his destination on time. But if you don't obey the rules, you are unsafe. You have unpredictability whether I will reach to my college or my destination or not, because nobody is following the rule, right? So there are chances of accidents. But if everybody is decided to follow the rules, the chances of accident will be minimized. And that is the reason we have certain laws to avoid this kind of overloading. So let us see what is this Anti's law. Basically, Anti's laws mean by the perisegmental area of the abutment tooth. Perisegmental area of the abutment tooth means this root which are embedded into the socket. So there is a periodontium, and this area is called as perisegmental area. This area of the root portion which is embedded into the socket is called as your perisegmental area of the abutment. Clear? Right. So perisegmental area of the abutment tooth is equal in this diagram. If you see, the pericymmental area of this tooth. For example, the pericymmental area of this one abutment is 2 and the pericymmental area of this abutment is again 3. So 2 plus 3 is equal to 5 and the pericymmental area of this missing tooth is around 3 because this is molar and this is also molar. So if this is having pericymmental area 3, so automatically here also the pericymmental area will be 3, right? So the pericymmental area of this abutment 3 and the pericymmental area of this abutment 2, that will be 5, right? So this pericymmental area 5 should be either equal or more. That means either it should be 5 or more than 5, right? To the pericymmental area of the teeth being replaced. Which tooth we are replacing? This molar, right? So our pericymmental area of abutment was 5 and the pericymmental area of our pontic was 3. So it is more than the pericymmental area of abutment. So that means our Anti's law is satisfied, right? Now I will go back. We will see in another slide. Now can you calculate this pericymmental area? For example, premolars pericymmental area was 2, right? Pericymmental here pericymmental area is again 2. Here pericymmental area is 3. So 3 plus 2 plus 2 is equals to 7. And the pericymmental area of our pontic is 5, right? Because premolar 2, molar 3, so it is 5. So the pericymmental area of abutment is 7 and the pericymmental area of my pontic is 5. So that means it is more. So it is satisfying the Anti's law. If I exclude this abutment, if I don't take this abutment, then the pericymmental area of abutment will be 5 and the pericymmental area of my pontic will also be 5. So it is equal. So that is also acceptable. But if you have a pericymmental area of your abutment less as compared to the pericymmental area of pontic, then you are disobeying the Anti's law. Then anything can happen in future. It is unpredictable. That is why we should obey the Anti's law. Clear? Right. Yes, Fahad? No, 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 no. What I told 2, 3, it is just for example. Pericymmental area, if you literally want to calculate, then with the help of radiograph, you can literally calculate the pericymmental area. Understood? See, it's not rocket science. It is understood, right? If it is 1 molar and you are taking 1 molar as a abutment tooth, automatically your pericymmental area for both the abutments will be equal because that is also molar, that is also molar. Fine, it will be equal. But the thing is that if I, for example, if I only take this as a abutment tooth and I don't have support of this mesial abutment, then this type of FPD will be called as cantilevered FPD. Cantilever FPD we have studied in first semester, if you remember, right? Cantilever FPD, there will be more force, oblique force, which will be acting on this abutment, and oblique forces are very dangerous. Understood? So though the pericymmental area is equal, but in long run there is lot of danger for this abutment. Understood? That is the reason if you take support from mesial abutment, automatically tremendously the longevity or the long run of that FPD will increase. And of course your pericymmental area is also increasing. Understood? There are certain situations where you are not in a position. Now if your molars and premolars are missing, right? Both the premolars and 1 molar is missing. So then you have to think of regarding this Anti's law. So there are different conditions, right, where you have to obey this Anti's law. This is Anti's law which is going, if you satisfy this Anti's law, you will have 100% assurance that your prosthesis will work for longer period of time. Understood? Right. We will, when we go ahead, you will understand. Don't worry. Now, consequences if you don't follow the Anti's law. The answer of your question, suppose now if this is premolar, this is canine, and this is molar. So molar pericymmental area, what we have decided? 3. The pericymmental of area of canine we have decided, for example, 2. And for this also we have decided 2. So how many pericymmental area we have now? 3 plus 2 plus 2 is equal to 7. And pericymmental area of this molar, canine, premolar, lateral incisor, central incisor, central incisor, lateral incisor, 2 premolars and 1 molar. It is more than 7. That means there is no equal or more than equal pericymmental area of your pontic, of your teeth to be replaced. So do you think we are following the Anti's law? Do you think this Anti's law is satisfied in this situation? No. And if you don't follow the law, you are going to have this kind of consequences, right? You are going to kill the natural tooth which are healthy by not obeying the Anti's law. So I hope Anti's law is clear with everyone now. Right. Now coming to the functions of the pontic. What functions the pontic plays? Number 1 is mastication, right? Because whatever tooth has been lost, the main function of tooth is our mastication. So your pontic is going to restore the function of mastication. Along with the mastication, it is also going to restore the phonetics or the speech of the patient if it is anterior, maxillary preferably. So maxillary anteriors or anterior tooth plays a very big role in phonetics. So if your tooth are lost, your phonetics is going to hamper, and when you are going to replace that missing natural tooth with the help of fixed partial denture with the pontic, your phonetics is going to restore again. Understood? And the last function of your pontic is your aesthetics. It is going to restore the aesthetic. Though it is posterior tooth, but still it is playing some role in the field of aesthetic. If your posteriors are missing, the cheeks support will be collapsed and you will have this kind of old age appearance, right? So when you replace your pontic, again the cheek will get support and the facial support will be restored and aesthetic will be improved. So these are the main 3 functions which are restored by your pontic: mastication, your speech or phonetics, and your aesthetic. Now consideration for success of pontic. Now we have seen what are the principles of tooth preparations: mechanical, biological, aesthetics. Similarly, here also we have certain consideration. Biological consideration, cleansable tissue surface, right? Now we are talking about biology. We are talking about biological health. So it should have a cleansability. The access to the abutment should be easy so that you can maintain the periodontal health of your abutment tooth properly, right? Because that is the main foundation for your fixed partial denture. If your abutments are not good, your FPD will fail. No pressure on the ridge, because if there is a pressure on the ridge, there will be irritation, inflammation, periodontal problems will be there. So all these are biological consideration. We will see in depth also. Then we have mechanical consideration, which includes rigidity of the prosthesis, strong connectors to avoid any kind of fracture. Then the metal ceramic framework should be there so that the ceramic will get a strength. Otherwise, if you don't have a proper structure, you have to make your restoration very thick. Like in last lecture we have seen, in all ceramic crowns, we have to make thicker crowns just to have a strength. Okay, because ceramic is a bit brittle material. But if you have a metal backing inside, you can reduce the thickness of your ceramic. Then we have aesthetic consideration. Shape should look like your natural tooth. It appears like it is growing from the ridge, then automatically it will look like a natural tooth. And sufficient space should be there for porcelain, because if the porcelain layer is very thin, the metal substructure which is inside, that color will be reflected outside, and whatever shade you want to achieve for that particular case, you will not able to achieve that. So these are the consideration for success of your Pontic. Now we will see in depth regarding the consideration. First is your cleansable tissue surface. Now as you can see in the picture, the convex surface of the Pontic we are cleaning with the help of floss. There are brushes, interdental brushes, which are available commercially, that you can prescribe to your patient along with the toothbrush, right? Along with the toothbrush, that interdental brushes you can prescribe to your patient so that he can properly maintain the health of the prosthesis, because these are the areas where the chances of food lodgement is more, and if it stays for longer period of time, remember there is abutment also, remember there is periodontium also, which is playing very crucial role for health of your abutment, right? So it should be cleansable properly. Access to the abutment should be easy. There should be sufficient amount of space so that you can clean it properly, so that you can have access to the abutment tooth also to maintain the cleanliness. But when you are doing that, you are not supposed to compromise the aesthetic also, because if you keep this space little wide, little bigger, so that you think that if it is big there will be no food lodgement or I will be able to clean it properly, you are right, but on the other hand you are playing with the aesthetic. These big spot will not look good, it will look ugly. So that thing also you have to keep in mind when you have access to the abutment. No pressure on the ridge. Now you can see in this picture, you will appreciate, because of the pressure on the ridge there is an inflammation, which is absolutely not good for your periodontium, for your abutment, and for your patient, right? So it should not act lot of pressure or pressure onto the ridge. It should just have a pinpoint contact, and there are some Pontic designs where you don't have contact. Okay, so that comes under classification of Pontic, which we are going to study in part 2. Coming to the mechanical consideration, it should have a rigid, so that it should resist for the deformation. There should be no dimensional changes when patients bite on the prosthesis. Strong connector in long span bridges. Long span bridges understood? Right. So now when you have a long span bridge, Anti's law is going to play a very big role. You have to obey the Anti's law. If you disobey the Anti's law, we have seen what are the consequences. So for long span bridges, the connectors should be strong enough to prevent any kind of deformation or dimensional change or fracture. Metal ceramic framework to resist the fracturing or chipping off of the ceramic layer. Now in this picture you can see there is less crown preparation, right? And because of this less crown preparation, our technician didn't get chance to have a proper thickness of the ceramic layer, right? And whatever ceramic he has put on the top of this metal structure, that ceramic was very thin and it chipped off because of your improper crown preparation, less crown preparation. Second thing is that if you did a crown preparation properly, but your technician made a metal framework very thick, the space that should be occupied by the ceramic, that space he has encroached by the metal framework. So automatically your ceramic layer should be thin. So because of that also you can have this kind of chipping off of the ceramic layer. That is why we should understand each and every step, not only clinical step but also laboratory steps, so that you can identify what is the problem when the metal framework is sent to you for evaluation, because your technician, your dental auxiliary is going to send you the metal framework for evaluation. You have to remove the provisional crown, you have to place the metal framework onto the prepared abutment tooth to check the marginal integrity, to check the spacing which is available occlusally to have a occlusal build-up. Also, you have to check the thickness of your copings. If everything is okay, then you can give him grain signal so that he can put or add ceramic on the top of that metal substructure. That is why we should understand what is the thickness of metal coping, what should be the thickness of your ceramic layer, where the thickness should be more. Like functional cusp bevel, it should have more thickness, non-functional cusp we have little less thickness, so like that. So these are regarding the mechanical consideration. Coming to the now this part you have to understand. When you are replacing any missing natural tooth, right, whatever the occlusal table dimension, surface area understood, right, whatever surface area of the pontic was there before, it should be 30% less surface area with your pontic. Understood? Now I want 100% attendance. If the surface area of this pontic is 100, for example I am talking about, right? So the surface area that you are going to replace with your pontic, it should be 70, less than 30%. Why? Because whatever functional needs are there, whatever occlusal forces are needed, will be provided by that 70% occlusal table, right? And as it is less surface area, so the amount of forces, masticatory forces which are acted on this pontic are automatically reduced by 30%. And now the abutment has to bear the occlusal forces 35. Okay, half of the 70 will be 35. Understood? But if you apply or if you build a occlusal surface area 100%, the abutment has to bear the forces 50, which is more, right? If you satisfy the Anti's law, it will work properly, there is no question. But if you want your prosthesis to work for longer period of time, it is better to reduce the surface area of your pontic by 30%. By reducing this 30% surface area, you are not going to compromise the masticatory efficiency, but you are going to put less pressure on the abutment tooth, which is good for the health of my abutment. Understood? So this comes under mechanical consideration. I hope this is clear with everyone. Right. So when you have a pontic in your clinic from the laboratory, try to evaluate the surface area. Okay, don't just look blindly, try to evaluate the surface area. Or if you have any opportunity to go in fourth year clinic and see their pontics or see their bridges, then you try to memorize or try to visualize, try to analyze how is the surface area of that pontic and how is the surface area of natural teeth. You will come to know that it is reduced by 30%, up to 30%, not more than 30%. Understood? Now coming to the aesthetic consideration. The shape should look like a natural tooth. It appears it should grow from the gingiva. Now if you see properly here, you will see that we did some characterization, right? We have prepared a root-like portion which is gone into the depth of the sulcus, into the depth of the ridge, right? And it is looking like it is emerging from the gingiva. So aesthetically it looks more pleasing. What if I terminate my pontic at this yellow portion? Can you see this yellow line? If I terminate this pontic at this portion only, you will see a big black triangle here, which is very unpleasant aesthetically, and we don't want that. Understood? So it should look like it is growing from the ridge. So you are going to satisfy the aesthetic. But when you say that it should grow from the ridge, that doesn't mean that you should apply pressure onto the ridge, because we have seen what will happen if you apply a lot of pressure on the ridge. So you have to keep a balance. Sufficient space should be available for your pontic, and for this reason your crown preparation should be proper. Understood? So the success story of any FPD, crown, bridge, whatever, starts from the first appointment, starts from the diagnostic impression, starts from the case history itself. Each and every step what you are doing is very important, right? Very important. Your diagnostic impressions are important, your preparation is important, your provisionals are important, your trying is important, cementation is important, every step. Not only cementation, but after cementation also there are certain protocol that one must follow to gain proper success. So these are the aesthetic consideration. I hope everything is clear regarding the consideration, biological, mechanical and aesthetics. Now there are certain pre-treatment assessment. Pre-treatment assessment means when the case comes to your clinic with missing natural tooth, you have to do certain assessment. What are they? You have to evaluate the available space, right? Now in this diagram, you will see there is a missing molar, right? Now you have already studied what are the consequences of tooth loss. Do you know what are the consequences of tooth loss? There will be tilting of the tooth, supraeruption of the tooth, like that, right? Loss of proximal contacts, malocclusion and all. Now, if your patients, now there is lack of information in society regarding fixed partial denture, everybody agrees with me, right? Patient doesn't know that there is some prosthesis which is going to replace their missing natural tooth. Maybe their previous dentist didn't inform them, or maybe he neglected, right? Or maybe there are certain other conditions, like maybe some patients, they are not financially strong to replace the teeth and they neglect, because this is not emergency condition or needed treatment, but there are consequences which are related with the patient's health and patient is not concerned or aware about that. That is why we have to educate our patient. Once you extract the tooth, educate your patient to go for the replacement. Now, when the patient is coming to you, you have to evaluate whether the space available, mesiodistal space and cervico-occlusal space available with that patient, whether it is sufficient to accommodate the pontic or not. This evaluation you have to do. Because if there is lot of tilting and the mesiodistal space is very less, then better not to go with that fixed partial denture. You have to do the orthodontic tooth movement to correct the angulation of the tooth and then go for the replacement. So your treatment plan has to be changed, right? So that is why your pre-treatment assessment is also important. So you have to assess the available space, evaluate the supraeruption. Now in this case you have seen that the opposing tooth is supraerupted, so the height, the cervico-incisal height of pontic is compromised, right? So I should not proceed with this type of situation. There is a change in the treatment plan for such cases. Now this supraeruption is more than 2 millimeter, so what I have to do is, because of this supraeruption, the occlusal plane, maxillary occlusal plane is disturbed, right? With this disturbed occlusal plane, I should not go for the replacement. First, I have to correct the occlusal plane. And for correction of this occlusal plane, I have to do the intentional root canal treatment of this molar for the supraeruption. And then I have to cut the supraerupted portion, right? Give the crown for this tooth to restore the maxillary occlusal plane and then go for the replacement of mandibular, right? So my treatment plan has changed. Understood? Yes. Question? Is there any? Can you repeat your wait? Can you please repeat your question? Is there any? Is there any mean for supraeruption? See, usually supraeruption occurs in long run, maybe after 6 months, 7 months, maybe 1 year, right? If you educate your patient to go for replacement, and if he is coming after 6 months, maybe after 8 months, you will not see this supraeruption, because this supraeruption takes long time. It's not like within 2 3 days there will be supraeruption. Agreed with me? Yes. Right. First of all, you have to ask your patient to go for immediate replacement to avoid supraeruption. Second thing, if this supraeruption is less than 2 millimeter, then you can do enameloplasty. Okay, there is no need of doing root canal treatment. Just do some enameloplasty and proceed with the FPD. But here the supraeruption is more than 2 millimeters, which is tremendous, huge. If I do 2 millimeter enameloplasty, I will land up into the dentine, and if I keep like that, your patient will have sensitivity. So instead of removing his problem, you are creating another problem. That is why go for intentional root canal treatment, give the crown for the supraerupted tooth which is having more than 2 millimeter supraeruption, and then proceed with your fixed partial denture. Understood? Yes. So that is why you have to identify, you have to assess before directly jumping for the crown preparation. Usually what we do, we see edentulous portion, bridge, and start preparation. We forget about this pre-assessment exam. And when you have a prosthesis ready, and when you try to establish the occlusion, centric, eccentric movements, you come to know that your patient is not able to do the mandibular movement, eccentric movement properly, because the maxillary occlusal plane is compromised, right? That means if you want to correct, you have to throw that prosthesis, do the maxillary occlusal plane correction, and again repeat the prosthesis. So already you have spent lot of time for first bridge, then you will spend again time for your second bridge and occlusal correction. Why this happens? Because pre-treatment assessment you didn't do. That is why pre-treatment assessment are important. Yes, Fahad, your question. What is the role of subdermal treatment while as I said, if the supraeruption is more than 2 millimeter, and for correction of that, if you do enameloplasty, you will cut enamel and the dentine will be exposed. And you know that dentine is very sensitive, that dentinal tubules will be exposed, and your patient will have sensitivity all the time. Do you want your patient to have the sensitivity lifelong? Will he tolerate? No. So what you have to do, you have to put something to protect. And for doing that protection, you have to do the crown preparation. Already 2 millimeter reduction you did, and now you will do more reduction for your crown. That means you are going near to the pulp. So to avoid sensitivity, you will have pulpitis. Do you want pulpitis? No. Then what you have to do? Do the intentional root canal treatment, remove the pulp, and give the crown, correct the occlusal plane, and the patient will not have sensitivity, patient will not have pulpitis also, and the maxillary occlusal plane is corrected. Understood? Any other question? Fine. Then we have to evaluate the aesthetic for anterior region. Here you can see this is your diagnostic wax up, right? Diagnostic wax, you know, inlay waxes you have already studied. So diagnostic wax up we did, this is with blue color, but usually in laboratory they do with the white, off-white color, so that you can properly able to visualize how that prosthesis is going to look in future. Now this we do in all the cases preferably, because you want to fabricate the index, right? Putty index we are fabricating for your direct technique on your cast, diagnostic cast, right? So for fabrication of this putty index also, your diagnostic wax up will help. So all these are pre-assessment for your Pontic. Understood? So let us move ahead. The contour of residual ridge matters. Right. Now this is your contour of your residual ridge. Now we are only concentrating on this ridge portion. So whether we have to concentrate on this ridge, it is important question. The answer is yes. Have to consider this residual ridge contour. Loss of ridge contour may leads to unesthetics. Open gingival embrasure, which looks like a black triangle. We have seen one example before. There will be food impaction, food lodgement if you have a big space, and percolation of saliva during your speech. If this is with anterior and there is a big space in between the retainer and your pontic, that empty space will percolate the saliva when your patient is speaking, or there will be leak of air and the phonation speech will be hampered. That is why ridge contour is very important. So to this ridge contour, we have a classification for this ridge defect. This classification was proposed by Sieberts and it is called as Sieberts ridge defect classification. He has classified this defect into three categories: class 1, class 2 and class 3 category. We will see in depth what is class 1, class 2 and class 3. So let us with your class 1 ridge defect. What is class 1 ridge defect? Class 1 ridge defect is faciolingual loss of the tissue. Faciolingual loss of the tissue is considered as class 1 ridge defect. The height is okay. The height of the ridge is okay. But the faciolingual width is compromised. And why this happens? Because when you did the extraction, you might have fractured the buccal cortical plate. Nowadays, there is a concept going on in your oral surgery, a traumatic extraction. Have you heard this term before? A traumatic extraction, or traumatic, no trauma extraction. Have you heard this term before? Or traumatic extraction means you are not supposed to damage the periodontium. I mean, the periodontium will be damaged, but you are not supposed to damage the cortical plates, the buccal, palatal, lingual, whatever cortical plates, so that you preserve the socket. And this type of defect can be avoided, right? So this is class 1 defect. Here, class 1, fine. Now, what is the management for this? There is some remedy for this because we see this type of situations frequently. We have a roll-on technique of soft tissue ridge augmentation. What we do in that, this is the cross section of your defective ridge, class 1 defect, which is where there is a compromised faciolingual width. The height is okay. So what you have to do is epithelium is removed from the palatal surface, as you can see in the diagram. Then elevation of the flap creating a pouch on the vestibular surface. As you can see, we have created a pouch, and then the flap is rolled into the pouch to enhance the width. Now this is rolled inside and it has been sutured. So whatever there was faciolingual compromised condition has been restored here with the help of roll-on technique for your class 1 residual ridge defect. Who gave the classification? Sieberts gave this classification. That is why it is called as Sieberts ridge defect classification. Now coming to this is pouch technique. This is another technique. Split thickness flap is reflected. Graft material is placed into the pouch. Now this is the graft material. You can use allograft, any graft, whatever graft you want to use. And then the flap is sutured back. This is again going to restore your faciolingual dimension. So these are the two techniques. One was roll-on technique. Second is pouch technique to manage class 1 ridge defect. Understood? Coming to the class 2 ridge defect. Class 2 ridge defect is loss of ridge height. The faciolingual dimensions are okay, but there is loss of height. Now you can see in this picture, there is loss of height. See this, the loss of ridge height. But the faciolingual dimensions are okay, are not compromised. So that is your class 2 ridge defect. Then we have class 3 ridge defect, which is combination of 1 and 2, as you can see in this picture. The height is compromised, the width is compromised, and everything is compromised. So it is a combination of class 1 and class 2. So this is clear? Clear. Good. Now what is the management for class 2 and class 3? We have onlay graph ridge augmentation technique. Pre-surgical view of class 3 residual ridge defect. The same management is there for class 2 also. The recipient bed prepared by removing the epithelium, as you can see in the diagram. Now the striations are made in connective tissue to encourage the revascularization. You have to revascularization. You need to initiate the revascularization. So why you have to do that, we will see in another diagram. Onlay graft is sutured in place. Now can you see, we have taken another graft, and that graft we have placed onto this revascularization area, so that there will be proper blood flow supply for this graft, right? And there will be proper healing. So this technique is called as onlay graft technique for management of your class 2 and class 3 ridge defect. Understood? So this was all about your Pontic part 1. What we have seen, what is Pontic, the definition of the Pontic, what is Anti's law and why it is important for Pontic or for your fixed partial dentures, what are the type of ridge defect, and what are the management for the ridge defect, right? So in part 2 we will see what is the classification of Pontic, because there are different classification proposed by different authors. We are going to learn that classification. In that classification we will see different types of Pontic, because for every situation you have to select a Pontic design. Understood? So that's it for all today. Thank you very much. See you next week.